está el Mystery Tour. Pero no vamos a ir, vamos a dar una vuelta por Liverpool, el maravilloso tour de Magical Mystery Tour.
Welcome to the Cavern Club's Magical Mystery Tour. Now, the first thing I want to do this afternoon is introduce you all to my very good friend, and he's your wonderful driver, we hope. His name's Tony. Can everyone say hello to Tony for me, please?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
And I really should introduce myself. My name is Jay Johnson. I'm a local lad. I'm actually Penny Lane born and bred. I went to the same two schools as John Lennon. I went to Dovedale, his primary school, and I also went to Quarry Bank, his high school. So for those of you who know your Beatles history, today you're talking to a genuine quarryman. Now, Liverpool, of course, it's incredibly famous for its music, and whenever you are here in Liverpool, you're never really far away from a musician or somebody who's got some type of musical connection. Now, take for example Tony, our driver today, often seen at his local church playing the guitar, and he's a great guitarist as our Tony. But I also have a connection to Liverpool's music scene. My brother, he was in the city's second most successful band, and their biggest selling single, it actually sold more copies than any Beatles single in the UK. He sung and performed with Sir Paul McCartney on 2 UK number ones, once in 1989 and again a little bit more recently, Christmas 2012. Does anybody ever remember the band Frankie Goes to Hollywood? You all know Holly Johnson, the lead singer. Well, I'm Jay, his kid brother, and it's my pleasure to meet you all today. Now, I'm going to quickly run through some of the things we're going to be looking at. Obviously, the likes of the four houses where the guys used to live. We'll be looking at Penny Lane, Strawberry Field, St Peter's Church, McCartney's Music School. A lot of places really in quite a short amount of time. Now, we're going to be making 4 stops along the way, so there's plenty of photo opportunities for everybody. We'll be stopping on the corner of Penny Lane by the famous street sign. We'll be stopping at Arnold Grove, the birthplace of George Harrison, Strawberry Field, and also the McCartney family home. Along the way, lots of stories to share with you. I'm also going to be playing some music for you all as well. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, folks, okay? Thank you very much. But if you look to the left-hand side here, now this is Madryn Street. Now take a look out for the 5th door down on the left-hand side. It's actually in between the first 2 trees. Now that one there is number 9. On the 7th of July 1940, Ringo was born inside the house. And that of course makes Ringo the oldest member of the band. He was 3 months older than John Lennon. Now when Ringo was 3 years old, his father left his mother. And that left his mother wartime, 1940s. Single parent, she worked in a bar. She could no longer afford to pay the rent on the 3-bedroom house, so she had to move 150 yards around the corner to a 2-bedroom house. It's coming up here shortly on the right. Now you're going to notice here another little street. It's called Admiral Grove. And if you look halfway down Admiral Grove, on the right hand side of the street, you're going to notice there's a pink and white house. Now that one's number 10. That's the place where Ringo lived from when he was 4 until he was 23 years old. Now also here, if you look closely at the gold lettering above the central window of the pub, it tells us that this building appeared on the sleeve of Ringo Starr's first solo album, Sentimental Journey. Now if you've never seen the album cover before, Google it, and on the album cover itself, Ringo's standing outside this left-hand door. There's an elderly lady on the sidewalk dressed in a navy blue raincoat. It was actually his grandmother. Also on the album cover, in each of the windows, different faces. Each face a different member of Ringo's family. You know, Ringo's mother Elsie often used to come into this pub, and it was here where she met her second husband, Ringo's stepfather. His name was Harry Graves. They'd often sit around a piano, they'd also sing songs. One of the songs Elsie used to sing was Doris Day's Sentimental Journey. So that's why Ringo did a cover version. He called his first solo album Sentimental Journey. shortly about to realise that John Lennon, the working class hero, he lived in the nicest house in the nicest neighbourhood out of all of the Beatles. I suppose if any of the Beatles were true working class heroes, it certainly would have been Ringo or George. Now, to live in a house like this one, especially back in the 1940s, it would have been pretty well to do. Now the house, it's 251 Menlove Avenue and it's called Mendips. In 2002, Yoko Ono, she bought this house, donated it to the National Trust. So the National Trust now own 2 of the 4 Beatles houses, both John Lennon's and also Paul McCartney's. Now the house, it's just ahead of us here, it's on the left hand side. It's a semi-detached house and it's the left hand side of the semi. Now if you look very closely at the house, you'll just about make out underneath the big bedroom window that there is a blue plaque, and it's the only one of the Beatles houses that gets a blue plaque. Now the reason for that, the blue plaques are put there by English Heritage, and in order to get a blue plaque off English Heritage, not only have you got to be dead, but you got to be dead for 20 years. Apparently the thought process is, if you're still famous 20 years after your death, then you deserve a blue plaque. Makes sense to me, I suppose. But John Lennon, he lived in the house between 1945 and 1963, from when he was 5 until he was 23 years old. So that means John lived in the house for a total of 18 years. It also means that John lived here longer than he ever lived anywhere else. Okay, now the next place we're going to take a look at is number 20 Forsley Road. It's the McCartney family home. Now the McCartneys, they lived in 7 or 8 different addresses around the city here in Liverpool. This was the 7th address that they moved to. Paul, he lived here for 8 years. But when they did move here, Paul's mother Mary, she was absolutely delighted because it really was the nicest house in the nicest neighbourhood that the family lived at. Unfortunately, within 12 months of moving in here, Paul's mother Mary, she died of breast cancer when he was only 14 years old. So of course, John and Paul, they had something else in common. They both lost their mothers when they were teenagers.
Casa de Paul McCartney, el número 20, la casa de Paul McCartney. Con todo, en Liverpool seguimos caminando bajo la lluvia y allá está la nueva estatua de los Beatles. Las estatuas, pero la estatua de los Beatles. La anécdota de hace 3 años acá, cuando quisimos sacar acá en el monumento a la Reina Victoria, yo quise sacar la misma foto que se sacaron los Beatles en el año 63. y me equivoqué de lugar, saqué en aquel lugar y era en este lugar. Pero ¿quién me corrigió? ¿Quién me dijo?
Yo.
¿Qué dijiste a mí?
Porque yo vi la foto y vi que por la imagen me di cuenta que no era la orientación que tenía. Le dije a Fachi que se había equivocado de lugar.
Claro, y el lugar es este, acá. Ahí es la foto que se sacaron los Beatles en el año 63. Ahora la vamos a mostrar bien y la vamos a comparar con la imagen original y con la foto que yo me saqué. Ahí está. En este mismo lugar, en el año 1963, sacaron la foto los Beatles. Vienen ahí caminando. Está igual el lugar. Con los edificios de atrás te das cuenta. Bueno, acá está el hotel, el Hard Day's Night. Hace 3 años vinimos a este hotel. Está exclusivamente todo decorado de los Beatles. Las habitaciones, los lugares comunes. Es el primer y único hotel dedicado a los Beatles. El Hard Day's Night. La verdad que estuvimos hace 3 años y estuvo muy bueno, ¿no?
Sí.
Las habitaciones eran bárbaras y el desayuno espectacular acá mismo, en la esquina, en Blake's, acá, era bárbaro. Adentro están las fotos individuales de todos los que están en el disco Sgt. Pepper, pero en fotitos individuales, lo cual es muy curioso. Allá está el Hard Day's Night. Bueno, ahora vamos a entrar a Magia Street, la calle donde quedaba The Cavern y donde los Beatles venían y tomaban, después de tocar en The Caverns, tomaban unas cervezas y algunos tragos. The Magia Street es un clásico en la historia de los Beatles. Y aquí comienza Magia Street, son apenas 2 cuadras, pero llena de magia y llena de la música de The Beatles. Vamos a ver. Aquí estaba la entrada original de Cavern, aquí era. Esta era la entrada original. Ya no existe, fue reemplazado por unos similar a poquitos metros, pero esta era la entrada de Cavern. La estatua de Cilla Black, al lado de la entrada original de Caverns. Cilla Black era una cantante de los años 60 que acompañaba mucho a los Beatles. Acá está Cilla Black.
Acá, como en The Cavern no daban alcohol, los Beatles antes de los shows venían a tomar acá y dicen que elegían la misma mesa. Y la misma mesa cerca de los baños de las mujeres, porque decía que las chicas jovencitas se venían acá con los ruleros, con los pañuelos con los ruleros y se venían, entraban directamente al baño y se arreglaban, se peinaban y estaban medias sin ropa, y entonces dice que los Beatles se sentaban cerca porque las puertas siempre estaban medias abiertas, entonces las miraban y las chusmeaban como se arreglaban las chicas y salían del baño súper arregladas.
En este mismo lugar de Grapes, aquí se vendía alcohol. Toda la gente está sola. Este es un homenaje a Lennon Rigby, la canción de los Beatles, de Paul McCartney, para la gente que está sola. Toda la gente que está sola. Ella es Eleanor Rigby. Y la ciudad de Liverpool le rinde homenaje. Acá, justo acá, estaba The Iron Door, que es donde por primera vez los Beatles tocaron en Liverpool con el nombre de Beatles, con doble E. Beatles, acá en Iron Door. Acá hay una placa que lo recuerda, dice The Iron Door, el llamado del Mercy Beat o algo así, no sé, no, la vela o la llama del Mercy Beat. Bueno, dejamos Matthew Street. Hola, ¿cómo va? Acá tenemos una amiga.
Hi.
Hi. Bueno, acá es Matthew Street, así es en Matthew Street, una amiga que pasó y se coló. Bueno, dejamos Matthew Street y vamos a ir a descansar. Hoy tuvimos una linda jornada de Beatles.
Sí.
Recorrimos todos los lugares de los Beatles, espectaculares, así que bueno, nos vamos de súper llenos de Beatles y con mucha alegría, ¿no, Ami? Dejamos Matthew Street para ir a descansar y mañana ver el gran show de Paul McCartney. Chao, Matthew Street.